Welcome back to the Safety Roadmap Podcast. Today, we'll be touching on a topic that's often brought up by those looking to secure their workplace from hazards and care about health and safety, excavation safety.
Ever walk by like a construction site and kind of wonder, like, how do they make sure those huge holes they dig don't like turn into a disaster or something?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're digging into today, excavation safety.
Really important stuff.
We're going to be looking at this guide all about making sure those digs don't, cave in.
Right.
And it's, you'd be surprised. It's relevant even if you're just doing something small in your own yard.
That's right. Most people don't realize, even on a smaller scale excavation work, it has its own risks.
Yeah.
And it all starts with, really understanding the ground that you're working with.
Okay, so let's break that down. So this guide, it really emphasizes looking at the soil before even starting to dig. Like
Yeah.
it's the foundation, literally, of the whole thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And this document, it breaks down soil into 3 types, A, B, and C. Each one acts differently when it comes to, how stable it is.
Okay.
And that changes how you have to, plan out the whole excavation.
So it's like picking the right tool for a job. But in this case, the tool is the ground itself.
Exactly. Like type A soil, like, the kind you might find in clay deposits, that's usually the most stable.
Uh-huh.
You can have it at steeper angles and it won't collapse. But type C, like if you think about loose sand or gravel, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. And that's where that simple soil test they talk about comes in, right? Like where you try and squeeze a clump of soil.
Exactly, yeah. It sounds simple, but that test can tell you a lot about how the soil will act. Like how much it compresses, how crumbly it is, all that tells you how steep you can make the sides of the dig before you need to, like, support them.
Right.
Like if you try to dig a straight hole in the sand at the beach, it's not going to work.
No, not at all. Not a good beach day. So how do they actually use that soil knowledge to like make the site safe? Because I see all these like ratios and angles in this document.
Yeah, those are really important for preventing collapses. Like with that stable type A soil we talked about, you can often have a steeper angle, like maybe a 1.1 ratio.
Okay.
So for every meter deep, the trench is also a meter wide.
Yeah.
But for soils that aren't as stable, it needs to be a gentler slope. Like for type B, it's more like a 1.43 ratio, so the pressure's spread out more evenly and it won't cave in.
So it's like geometry and geology all mixed into one.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing this all goes back to that soil bearing capacity they keep mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically how much weight can the soil hold before it, gives way.
Right.
The steeper the angle, the more pressure there is on those walls.
Huh.
And if you get it wrong, you could have, tons of earth collapsing. That's why if you're digging deeper than 1.25 meters, you need someone supervising who really knows what they're doing to make sure it's done right.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to mess around with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've checked the soil. You've got the angles figured out. What's next? What else makes an excavation safe?
Well, when you've got a big hole in the ground, you need to make sure everyone knows it's there. Right? It's all about securing the site, so you're putting up warning signs, barriers, whatever you need, so people can't just wander in.
Yeah, it seems obvious, but...
It's easy to miss.
Yeah.
A big hole in the ground can be dangerous if you don't know it's there.
Yeah, like in cartoons, you don't see it until you've already fallen in.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of danger, we got to talk about the workers, right?
Right.
This guide is really clear about keeping heavy equipment a safe distance from the edge of the excavation.
Yeah, because if that ground gives way.
It could be really bad.
Yeah.
So they have what they call the 6-meter or 60-degree rule. Basically, heavy machinery, it's got to stay at least that far away from the edge or at that angle.
Makes sense. Creates a buffer.
Exactly.
What about falling objects, though? That's got to be a worry with people working down there.
Oh, absolutely. Even something small falling from up there can really hurt someone. The guide says hard hats, you have to wear them. Always. No exceptions on an excavation site.
It's funny how something like a dropped tool, which is no big deal usually, becomes such a hazard in that environment.
Exactly. Things change down there. And while we're talking about falling, ladders.
Right.
Getting in and out of the trench is important too.
Yeah, can't just hop over the edge when it's that deep.
Nope. The deeper it is, the more important those ladders are. And this guide, it's got some specific rules, like you need ladders every 25 feet. That's about 7.5 meters along the trench. But here's the thing, they don't just reach the top. Those ladders have to go up at least 3 feet above the edge.
So you've got something to grab onto.
Exactly. It's all about making it as safe as possible to get in and out, no slipping, no falls.
Mm.
Now, we've talked about the soil, keeping the site secure, protecting the workers, but there's another safety thing people forget about.
Okay, what's that?
Shoring.
Shoring. Okay.
People don't think about it much, but it's how you keep those walls from collapsing.
So it's like putting support beams inside the trench.
Kinda, yeah. Shoring systems, they use different materials, different techniques, but the goal is the same. Support the walls, stop a cave-in. This guide talks about two main types, hydraulic and pneumatic. Hydraulic shoring uses these metal plates or sheets pushed against the wall and then held there by hydraulic cylinders really strong, and you can adjust them so they work in different soils.
Sounds kind of sci-fi, all that force holding back the earth.
It's impressive tech, yeah. Then you've got pneumatic shoring that uses compressed air to do the same thing, brace those plates against the wall.
So which one you use, it depends on what you're dealing with at the site.
Exactly. They each have pros and cons, right?
Right.
But the main thing is, shoring is essential. It's that extra safety measure, especially with soil that's not stable or if you're digging really deep.
Okay, so we've got our basics covered. Soil, site security, protecting everyone working there, and shoring. But I have a feeling there's more to it, judging by this guide.
Yeah, there's always more to learn. This document goes deeper into some really interesting advanced stuff. Like, what if you have to dig deeper than just a single trench?
Yeah. What do you do then?
That's where multiple bench excavation comes in.
Yeah.
Imagine, instead of going straight down, you're creating these steps or benches along the sides.
So instead of one big wall, it's like a staircase going down.
Exactly. This is really useful when it's deep because it makes the whole thing more stable, less likely to collapse because you've reduced how much soil is exposed.
It's like building a terrace into a hill, but you're doing it inside the excavation.
Exactly. You're spreading out the pressure.
Yeah.
But there is a catch.
There's always a catch.
This method, it works best with what they call cohesive soils, ones that stick together, like clay. Try it with loose stuff, like sand. It won't be nearly as effective.
So it all comes back to knowing your soil.
Always. And this document, it actually has diagrams of this, the stepped approach, even with measurements and stuff for different soils.
It's all starting to make sense now, but I bet there's even more to it.
There is. It gets more complex when you've got layering going on.
Layering.
That's when you have different soil types in the same excavation.
Okay, that does sound tricky. Tell me more.
Say you're digging down and you hit a layer of type C soil, the less stable kind, right on top of type A, which is usually pretty solid.
That sounds like a recipe for trouble.
It can be if you don't realize it's there. That's why understanding layering is important. You can't just assume it's all the same based on the surface.
So what do you do in that situation with the unstable layer over the stable one?
You adjust your strategy. Maybe you reinforce that weaker layer more, change the slope of the excavation to make it safer, or even think about a different excavation method altogether.
So you gotta, adapt as you go based on what you find.
Exactly, yeah. In this document, it actually shows a picture of that, type C over type A. And it really shows how much you need to change things up based on what's going on under the surface. What you see at the top isn't always what's down there.
It's like a strategy game, but with geology.
Right. And those choices, they really matter. 'Cause
Yeah.
you got to keep people safe. And of course, there's the budget and the schedule of the whole project. Mess up with the layering, and you could have delays that cost a lot of money, or even worse, someone could get hurt.
Yeah, you really see how important all this is. So for those of us who aren't, digging trenches every day, what's the big takeaway here?
Well, it seems like we've been talking about a lot of, technical stuff about soil and angles and all that. But really, it all comes down to having a better understanding of what's happening beneath us. We take the ground for granted, but it's more complicated than it looks.
Like you were saying before, the danger is hidden.
Exactly. Even knowing a little bit about these things can help us spot potential problems, make sure things are being done safely, and really appreciate the skill it takes to do this kind of work without something going wrong.
Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely.
And speaking of knowledge, this guide we've been going through has certainly given us a lot to think about. We've covered the basics of figuring out your soil type to the ins and outs of shoring and layering, all with a focus on keeping people safe. But before we climb out of this deep dive, I gotta ask, we talked about the soil, the angles, how to shore things up, but what about something like the weather? How do things like a lot of rain or really hot temperatures, or even just, when it freezes and then thaws, how did those things make excavation safety even more complicated? Just something to think about the next time you pass a construction site. Until next time, keep digging deep, but do it safely.
Thanks for sticking with us until the end of this episode. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen and engage with our content. If you found value in what you heard today, please don't forget to hit that like button. It helps us reach more people and lets us know we're on the right track. And if you haven't already, make sure to follow our channel so you never miss an upcoming episode. We've got some great topics lined up that you won't want to miss. Lastly, if you know someone who could benefit from this information, why not share the video with them? Spread the knowledge and help your colleagues stay informed. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.